What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like we have some movement around one of the most anticipated Switch 2 exclusive titles, and that's the Duskbloods, as it's starting to appear online with the eShop and even at some retailers with a release date getting thrown around, but we'll look at all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Todd Howard, who appeared in an interview and actually talked a bit about Elder Scrolls 6. And DICE did just happen, and apparently Clair Obscur Expedition 33 came up quite often, to the point where that $70 price tag is now in question. You might as well throw that $80 price tag out the window. We'll look at all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're here every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world of gaming news, trying to keep you up to date. So even if you don't get a notification in the morning, just know there's probably a video here for you to check out. And we're going to start today with Highguard. We did have an update around the website, which is still down, but this was shared, we can see. Now, this is in Discord from one of the developers on Highguard, answering the question about the website just not being functional right now, saying not sure on the time frame, but basically needs to be transferred and simplified. Low priority at the moment, reputational damage already done. Now we just need to focus on delivering updates and content to improve. So, of course, being a live service game, yeah, you need content and updates with the community feedback, and I know the community isn't exactly massive now, but the people who are playing currently, I mean, they're probably the most hardcore fans of Highguard. But the website, I feel like it should be more than a low priority, but that is the front-facing, immediate look for consumers to your product, and it just says it's not functional right now. Basically, it's down. So people who are looking into live service games like this, multiplayer games, might just think it's just shut down. So maybe in their mind, it's like, hey, well, obviously developers, not up to them right now. They are just probably head down looking, trying to get everything that they can done right now to make the game better. But they should probably get that website sorted out, whether it's transferring, simplify, whatever. That, to me, should be maybe on the high priority list. Also, we have some bad news with Replaced. It's being delayed, and we can see this. Now, this is over on their social media account, saying we have an important update to share regarding the launch of Replaced. After a lot of back and forth, we have decided to shift our release date to April 14th. Which actually isn't too, but that's a few weeks, all right? They say, as a small team working on our very first title, we've poured everything we have into this project. While the game is technically finished, reaching this final stretch has shown us that we need just a few more weeks to ensure the experience is exactly what you deserve. We want the version of Replaced you play on day one to be polished, stabled, and true to the vision we've shared with you. And I mean, they're going to delay it a few weeks because they want to polish a few more things to make sure it's as good as it can be, possibly can be, on release. That's fine. I mean, the game has shown a lot of promise leading up to its demo release as like the Steam Next Fest, and that demo has garnered a ton of praise online. People seem very, very excited even after playing it then. It's, again, a great sign for the title. So if there are some things maybe you're getting back in feedback for the demo, yeah, take some time, fix it up, make it right, and get ready for its release 2 weeks into April. There's a lot of stuff happening in March anyway, so games are starting to overlap already, and we're just a couple months into 2026. So, take your time, and we'll see them in April. Oh, and we had already talked about Monster Hunter Wilds and it making its way to the Switch too. After seeing all that stuff get data mined, and it looked like Capcom was developing and programming for the system based on lines of code. Well, a lot of that has been removed. At least mention of the Switch 2 has been removed from the game, and this was revealed in another data mining that just happened after an update. But Capcom left a certain image in, which you can see, yeah, it's a bunch of Switch 2s in local play with Monster Hunter Wilds on the system. I mean, look, Capcom, they're doing their best right now to try to keep this one secret, but it's Monster Hunter. If the game can run on the Switch 2, and something tells me it will be able to, especially after the recent update that makes the game run better because it's not always looking to see if you have DLC, which it's still wild that was the issue. But look, Japan, massive on Nintendo, obviously massive on the Switch 2. Monster Hunter, very popular in Japan, so it all makes sense from a business standpoint, provided they can get it to a good experience, we'll say, on the Switch 2, especially with local play like that. That leans heavily into the idea of Monster Hunter with multiplayer. So this time we're just kind of hanging out waiting, and I guess at some point in the future, whenever there's another General Direct, that'll probably be one of the big announcements. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Duskbloods. And look, I'm getting more and more excited for this game. I'm not saying I'm getting into like a full-on Souls mood right now, but playing Neo 3, like I've been really, really into that game right now. It is kind of pulling me back to yeah, maybe I would check out Elden Ring on the Switch too, or maybe I'll fire it back up even on the PlayStation. It's always like, do I want to start a new character and get into a 100+ hour journey all over again? We'll see. But hey, new experience with the Duskbloods, and maybe that's one of the reasons I'm getting more and more excited for it. Now, it is looking to be a multiplayer game, but even with some recent listings, it appears maybe it could also just be a single player game completely, if you want it to be that way. But the thing that's gotten people talking now is, for one, it seems to have shown up on Nintendo's eShop with an updated page. Now, this is in Australia, but you can see this is a screenshot over on Reddit right now. Planned release date, of course, sometime this year. And I mean, it's February now, and you feel like they would probably want to have some kind of marketing campaign for this game leading into its release. So unless they're looking at a holiday time period for it, you feel like they'd want to at least start talking about it somewhat here soon. With FromSoft, I mean, being bigger than ever, probably want to have a nice little run up to its release. And I don't know, maybe a network test. This is a game that really needs, I would say needs a network test. It's going to be apparently one of their biggest pushes towards a multiplayer polished game experience. And it will be, I mean, I'm assuming now full price, the whole thing. So it's, it's going to be a bit more than what they did with Night Rain, with Elden Ring. But here's the thing, right? So we see this pop up. People are getting excited. It's like, oh, okay, maybe we're going to get news for the Duskbloods here soon. Well, then an online retailer popped up with the game, and it had a release date. Get this, March 27th. That's in like 5 weeks. So, I'll tell you now, the game's not coming out March 27th. As I mentioned, I think they will have to do some kind of network test just to see where they are, especially since the game apparently has been in development since like 2019, and a good chunk of that was them just working to refine and polish the experience. What better way to get feedback and see how it holds up than letting a bunch of people out there online play the game in certain windows? And most likely that'll be the case. It'll be like a block of 3 or 4 hours here, 3 or 4 hours there over the course of a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and just see how the servers do, how the online interactions go, that kind of thing. So they're not going to do that in the next 2 weeks and then have time to fix up the game and then release it on March 27th. So I don't know if a lot of people are buying into. I mean, I saw some people on social media who go, wow, it's out next month. Because if you look around on this retailer's website, like, people are starting to realize, wait a minute, they have a lot of games that apparently come out March 27th that don't have release dates now. Like, there's one that just is immediately suggested to you, by the way, if you look at this on the website, probably because it's also coming out March 27th, and that's Shadow Legacy on the PlayStation 5. So that doesn't seem to have, I guess, a full-on release date for the physical copy. And again, these are placeholder dates. But still, it's very exciting to at least see some movement for the Duskbloods, because this was already an interesting pairing, with Nintendo getting an exclusive FromSoft game, and then it's being shown off. People thought it was Bloodborne at first, or the next Bloodborne, and I mean, I guess in spirit, sure, you could always kind of pretend it is, but I'm very curious to see them lean into the multiplayer side from the beginning. Not, oh, here's Elden Ring multiplayer mode with Night Rain. This is a game that they're building from the ground up with multiplayer more in mind than what we see with a lot of the other FromSoft games, where people can enter your world, or you can enter theirs, or they can hijack your world, that kind of stuff. No, just from the start, you go off into multiplayer. But if they also have single player, I'm all for that too. So a lot of questions still around Duskbloods, but seems pretty obvious. We're probably going to hear some stuff around it pretty soon, whether it's at a big general direct, or you know what? I wouldn't mind if they just tackle it on their own, just in a full video they release, just randomly on a Tuesday or something. Hey, here's a big Duskbloods info dump of just all kinds of stuff, and then we'll see you this time for the network test. Next up, let's talk about DICE, which did happen last week, and a bunch of people in the industry, whether it's at the corporate level or at the developer level, gather together, and there's all kinds of discussion around the current gaming industry going on there. And one person in particular who went from Bloomberg was Jason Schreier, and he seemed to notice one thing that was really being mentioned a lot, and that's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, it won Game of the Year. Well, that's just part of it, because that does display the level of quality and really excitement around the game going into December's big show with Jeff Keighley. But the other part comes down to the price for it, and then, of course, the reception and the sales number, which currently now I believe is over 6 million copies sold. Well, this we can see from Jason Schreier over on Bloomberg with his report. where he says, so at DICE, where executives gather to schmooze, down cocktails, and hear pitches, Claire Obscure came up a lot. Independent developers seeking funding were inevitably confronted with comparisons like, quote unquote, well, Claire Obscure did it for less money, while many wondered what lessons they could take away from the acclaimed RPG. And it really comes down to, hey, they made this thing for, I think it said $10 million or like less than $10 million. And they've sold 6 million copies at $50 a piece. Even taking out the 30% cut for, and then a little more maybe for physical, they made much more than it cost to create the game. So looking at that, and I knew this was going to come up, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, then going on to win Game of the Year, the most apparently Game of the Years that we've seen ever in terms of awards for a game in a calendar year. Yeah, that's going to be the thing that people are going to now point to, specifically executives or people who do control a lot of the money that would be used to fund smaller creators and developers, smaller studios who are there to, yes, talk about that. So when that happens, they go, hey, we need $50 million to do this. And they go, well, Claire Obscure did it for $10 million. What can you give me for $10 million? I want to find another Claire Obscure. And this is both good and bad. It's good because I like the idea that maybe they start looking around and going, $70 might be too much. $50 though, that's closer. And when Claire Obscure launched on Steam, as Jason Schreier points out, it was $40 because it was 20% off in terms of the discount. So you start to think about, is it better to sell 2 copies at $40 or 1 copy at $70? To me, the answer is 2 copies at $40. Obviously, you get more money, but also you get an extra person who maybe wouldn't have tried out the game, but decided to take a chance on it because it's much less than $70. So in that instance, well, if you sell 6 million at 50, is that better than 2 million copies at 70? Yeah, it is. And I'd like to see that mentality going forward, where we do get smaller games, but games that have to be more creative to bring interest and eyeballs to the product, which, look, Claire Obscure, when that showed up, we were like, because we first had a trailer and we said, okay, that was kind of cool. But then it broke away into the gameplay and we're like, whoa, this is a very dynamic looking turn-based RPG. And it's just not really something we've seen much recently. So immediately, I think, caught a lot of people's attention, myself included. And then it comes out and it delivers. That's what a lot of these big executives and people who have rounds of funding are going to be looking for. So it's going to be up to a lot of the smaller developers to come up with more interesting ways to approach this topic and figure out ways to create games that can come out maybe at $40 or $50, as opposed to a lot of publishers pushing $70 and $80. Remember when $80 was a thing? Haven't really seen that much recently, but don't worry, I'm sure GTA 6 will be around pretty soon to try to reset that trend. Next up, let's talk about Todd Howard and Elder Scrolls 6, which he went on Kinda Funny with Greg Miller, and I saw the interview pop up. This would be kind of cool to see. I wonder if they will actually talk about Elder Scrolls 6. And you know what? Todd Howard was pretty frank about it and actually talked about it more than I thought he would. He also talked about all kinds of other stuff with Fallout 76 and the TV show and Starfield, but I was mostly curious about the next iteration for the Elder Scrolls franchise. And well, you can see some of the interview here, and I'll go over a few points that he did mention. So first off, he did say that it is using Creation Engine 3. Starfield is on Creation Engine 2. 3 is just a culmination, they say, of years of evolution with this engine that, of course, went from 1 to 2 and now 2 to 3. So we'll see how all of that works out in practice, because I kind of feel like these Elder Scrolls games are just Bethesda games show up, and there's just some amount of jank that's almost expected. Certainly accepted, but definitely expected. Anyway, the future games, though, even after Elder Scrolls 6, those will use this new Creation Engine 3. So I guess think of, Fallout 5, whenever that does happen at some point in the 2040s. Coming back, though, here, they are going to be using the classic RPG style. And he mentions that they took a bit of a detour with Starfield and Fallout 76. For Elder Scrolls 6, though, they're going back to the tried and true methods they've used with something like Skyrim. And yeah, Skyrim is retro now. What is it? Almost 15 years old at the end of this year, which is crazy to think about. But like that, or Oblivion, or the older Fallout games, 3 and even 4. So that is good that they're going to go back to that rather than try to continue forward with something like a Starfield, or I guess try to leverage what they've learned in Fallout 76. But Elder Scrolls 6, he admits, announced way too early. And it seemed like a lot of that was done to reassure fans because they were also showing them Fallout 76. So you want to be like, hey, I know this is like a multiplayer MMO style game, but guys, don't worry. we are making the next big Elder Scrolls game. It's just probably going to be, they didn't tell us at the time, but they probably could have followed it up and go, hey, it's going to be like 10 years. And he does indeed say, while development's going well, it's going to be a while. The entire studio seems to be focused right now on Elder Scrolls 6, but even so, I'm thinking holiday 2028 might be optimistic. This very well could be a 2029 or 2030 game. So yeah, it's going to be on whatever the next hardware ends up being from Microsoft and yeah, probably Sony as well with a PlayStation 6. But it's going to be a bit. And that is unfortunate for Elder Scrolls fans, but I mean, these games are massive, and as we see, they last forever. Again, Skyrim has been put on everything, and let's face it, they'll probably try to put it on the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox. And like they just did the update for the Switch too. So hey, Elder Scrolls 6, that might last 20 years at this point with the way Skyrim's going. So they're not really in a rush right now, but yeah, probably announced a little too early, back in, 2018. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a story with Sony that's starting to make the rounds, I'd say again, yesterday, because we had talked about it previously in Newswave, but it just didn't seem to really make headlines until just recently in the last 24 hours. And that has to do with Sony's strategy, trying to mitigate rising RAM costs outside of just raising the PlayStation 5 price tag. Now, this is something that was covered by Automaton Media, and you can see here, where they say, Sony CFO Lin Tao said the company plans to minimize the impact of rising memory costs by focusing on monetizing the installed base and growing software and network services revenue. So yes, if you have a PlayStation 5, they're going to look to try to get more money from you. And you might be wondering, well, how can they do that? Well, the obvious thing here would be increase PlayStation Plus, or restructure it in some way. So they could have an option that also includes other services. I don't know, Crunchyroll, or maybe they talk to some of these other like EA, and like they can talk to other companies and try to package them in with a premium plus. Or yes, they can raise Essential tier from I think it's 80 right now a year to 100. Yeah, those are all things they can do, and is probably the most straightforward and easy thing for them to do. But to go aside from that, microtransactions in their multiplayer games, Marathon's coming up, Helldivers 2 is out there. Like, there are ways I'm sure that they can add on little things here and there that we'll see some sort of return. The thing I'm noticing, and I think this might be a trend for Sony going forward, especially in the immediate future, early access to big games. Saros, for example, has a 48-hour early access that is directly tied to the digital deluxe edition. So not only is it more expensive than the standard edition, it's also digital, which is a place that Sony gets more money than it going through retailers. All right, so keep an eye out for that. This 48-hour access thing might be a pretty consistent measure from Sony. I'm especially thinking of something like Wolverine. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. Otherwise, though, hey, more ports to PC. While it's not a boatload of money for them every time, the costs are low and it's more software and more exposure for probably older properties. I would like to see them go back and grab even infamous Second Son on the PlayStation 4. Move it up to PC, give it a PS5, like touch up, little update for it as well. Things like that I think do make sense for the low cost versus even decent revenue would still really turn a decent enough profit again to offset what we're seeing right now with rising RAM costs. But it's something Sony's going to be trying to figure out, because I do think the last thing they want to do, like 6 years into the generation, is say, hey, now that PlayStation 5 is $600 for the disc model, because what exactly does that mean for the PS6? And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, of these new games releasing in March, which one are you most excited for? Crimson Desert was number one, 45%. I think people are just curious to see how it turns out at this point, because it's people are having a hard time believing it's even a thing right now in its current form is what's being advertised. Pokemon Pokopia, 26%. I think that might do better than people are expecting with how they're talking about this being almost a Minecraft-like game. Monster Hunter Stories 3. And then we have Marathon, 9% for Marathon. So yeah, Crimson Desert probably is the big game, I would say, in terms of just the mainstream attention right now for March. And I'll be picking that one up day one to see what happens. But you know what? I'm also kind of curious about Marathon, just to see. It's Bungie, and I at least know the gunplay will be good. I'm more curious about the extraction shooter elements and how it all really works out when they release this thing, because it's been a rocky road to say the least, leading up to its release. And we'll finish up with the comments of the days we're seeing here. This is from Kami, who says, the no microtransactions of today is the no AI was used of tomorrow. So I'm thinking games right now that come up and it'll be a Kojima Productions or a Ubisoft production or something, like they do the little thing in the beginning, an EA original. I think it's going to come up and go like I don't know, a human production. As weird as that sounds, I don't know, maybe you get some kind of branding like that. I'm waiting for someone to make human studios and their big monsters just, we're humans making the game, like since forever. But honestly, you might stand out with that based on the current trajectory, not only of just technology, but the way all these companies right now, big companies, are talking about AI and how they're playing around with it, or in some cases integrating it heavily into their studio. It might be weird to just have humans making these games on basic Windows or Linux computers. So this is, it's kind of sad, but that might be a good marketing strategy here in like 5 or 6 years. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card. Or maybe you want to check out the PlayStation 3 with a bit of a breakthrough in the modding scene, where now basically all of them can be modded, especially the latest Super Slim system. I did a whole video on that, installing it and everything. I'll leave it right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.